Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored.
All right, welcome everyone back to another episode of Trauma Uncensored. Today is a special episode because it is the first time we have a guest, which I am so excited about. I'll let Brooke do all the introductions, but before we get to that, if this is your first episode, thank you for being here. This is a place where we heal out loud, and you'll notice the verbiage change as the episodes go on because that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, is to learn how to talk about trauma, how to get over it. Sometimes is what we've said. How to carry it is what we've said.
You said get over
I know, but that's my point.
No.
I'm using everything that we've that's exactly my point.
I know, because it's common verbiage for people to, oh, well, shouldn't you be over this by now?
Yeah.
Like,
No, you shouldn't. And that's actually, we've talked about this before, but my point is we are aiming to meet you where you are at as a person who is going through something traumatic or has gone through something traumatic, and just be a place where you can come and talk and listen to people share some ideas. We are not experts. I am not a psychologist or a therapist or anything like that. Neither is Brooke. Neither is Jess, which we'll introduce in a second. But the vibe and the idea, the mission of this podcast is to be a place where people can talk about the things that nobody kind of wants to talk about because it's either really difficult, it can be scary, or just there's no resources available to do so. So thank you for listening and thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on all our socials. More than anything, if you want to get a better idea of where this all started and where this all stems from, highly recommend to go back and listen to our first episode that kind of explains pretty much the whole reason for this podcast. But I usually have Brooke share like a synopsis, like a 30-second recap if you don't feel like going back and you're just plugged into this because this is where you found us. So that's also fine too. And then if you could do that, Brooke, and then once you share kind of what this podcast is about and kind of the gist of that first episode, introduce Jess and who she is to you, and then we can get going from there.
Go on from there. Hello, everyone. My name is Brooke Scherer, and thank you for joining us again for another podcast. I'm super excited for this one. Anyway, on September 15th, 2016, our 9-year-old son, Logan, was killed by a distracted driver. To say that it broke apart our entire lives would be an understatement. And the journey that we have been on in the past almost 9 years it's been gross. It's been mucky. It's been heartbreaking. It's been at times, almost life-taking. But along the journey, we've also found beauty and joy and the ability to walk forward and not get over it, but walk forward with it. The goal here, though, is to not to single out just families of distracted driving, crashes or loss. It's not to single out bereaved parents. I mean, that is what I am. I'm a bereaved parent and my child was killed by a distracted driver. But in this entire world exists traumas of so many different kinds, and they're not comparable. And there is a community, for all of us to gather around and talk about these things that matter, and not just talk about them, but help each other. And that's something that our society, at least, does not want to do. They want to pretend like these things don't exist. They don't want to talk about it. We want to live in a fairy tale life, we're princes and princesses living in a castle. No, we're not. Life is life, and it's real and it's raw, and it happens to all of us. So this is a place that we hope you all can come and find maybe a little bit of refuge, even if it's just for a little bit of time, find some resources, find some comfort in knowing that you're not alone.
Love that. And very well said. This is so cool. I love doing this. So thank you for the honor of letting me host or be host of this.
Absolutely.
Could you let the world know who Jess is to you and why we're here?
So first of all, Jess, Jess is my sister-in-law, but you'll very rarely hear me say in-law. I typically refer to Jess as my sister because she is my sister. But I do want to congratulate you on being not only the first guest, but making it on before your brother.
Sorry, Jordan.
Sorry, honey.
We knew better anyway.
But so Jess is Jordan's sister, my sister too, not in law. We may not be blood, but we are sisters through and through. But most importantly, Jess is Logan's aunt. And I am so excited and happy and grateful that you're here today because, the past 6 episodes, we've talked about things from my perspective. And that's not what I want to do with this podcast. I don't want it to be all about me. I don't want it to be all about, like I said before, distracted driving and just bereavement. There's so many people who are affected. And as you say all the time, everybody has lived through the worst trauma they have so far. And I'm really excited to put in front of everybody different stories and people's experiences to help others know. Jess knows what it's like to be a bereaved aunt, to lose her best friend, her nephew. I don't understand that just as much as she doesn't understand what it's like to lose a child, but that doesn't make our grief any different. It doesn't make one's more important than the other, one stronger than the other. So I'm excited today to just have a conversation with Jess and kind of fill everybody in on another perspective of trauma and what trauma means and how people move forward with it.
I love that. And Jess, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to meet you through this whole
Yes.
venture. Let me also say this too. I mean, when we did with the launch team, we did like a Q&A of, so people could submit questions and we could see what people were wondering about and things that they wanted to hear from us. And a lot of them were about how to help a family member that is going through a traumatic experience and is experiencing the fallout of that event. So many people, because sometimes not everyone goes through something extremely traumatic or experiences that intense trauma. Sometimes it's later in life. Sometimes people have already been through multiple. Everybody's path is different, but everybody knows somebody who has, right? Everybody knows someone like Brooke, right? Everyone knows someone who has sustained heavy losses or improbable, like impossible situations. And so there were so many questions about, how do I help that person? And so maybe we can get some of that perspective too with Jess, while also saying, hey, I went through some loss too. And even though it wasn't my son, it was still my family. It was still my best friend. It was still this insignificant and horrific event for me. And how do you balance that while still trying to give support to Brooke or to your loved one, but still dealing with yours? So it gets messy is all I'm trying to say. And so I'm excited to kind of dig into some of that and just see some perspective from both you and Jess. So Jess, if you don't mind, if I can just start by asking, where were you when on September 15, 2016, when you found out, when you heard, how did you find out? How did you hear about this? If you could walk me through that day for you.
I was getting ready to go to work. I lived in Chicago at the time, and I was actually in the bathroom putting my makeup on, and I got a text message from Brooke. And all it said was, Logan died. And there was some punching on the floor, and I was alone at home. And I remember running out of my door screaming for help because I didn't understand. And that was how it happened. I had to call into work, and I just called my mom and called my closest friends and got on a flight to Florida the next morning.
Oh, that's brutal. And
through it all, the one thing I remember was on the airplane, I couldn't stop crying. And I remember just everybody around me was so nice and kept, checking on me and giving me Kleenexes and all of that. It was just, that's like the only thing I could remember from that was the strangers being kind to me in that 24-hour period of just living through this and hearing it all at first, trying to believe something that could be so unreal to me.
Yeah, there must have been a feeling of just disbelief, right? As a text message pops through, it's almost confusion. Like, what do you mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did you have any of that just immediately
Yeah.
going, no way.
I mean, I believe it was exactly what she said was there was an accident. And then it said Logan is dead. And then I I remember just screaming. And but yeah, like the whole traveling, everything until at least getting to the hospital and seeing them physically and in person and not seeing Logan with them. I don't know that I believed that it was real until then.
Yeah, it doesn't quite register
Yeah.
until you experience. Brooke,
But
what was
go
that
ahead.
like sending that text message? I mean, that, from your perspective, it must have been impossible to hit send on that.
It was. I mean, when the first person I actually tried to call that day was my mom. And I couldn't get through to her. Her phone kept dying, which I actually believe was a very higher intervention because I don't think my mom would have been able to handle that phone call. So I called my dad, and I remember actually very clearly my dad saying, "No, no, you're lying. No, you're kidding. You're lying." And and that was the only phone call I could make. I couldn't. There was, I mean, because I was the 911 caller, and was on with them for God knows how long, and hearing my dad's voice from that phone call still haunts me. I've had to do work on that because I can, just like it was 5 minutes ago, I can hear the horror, and I can hear the disbelief, and I can just hear all of it still, and that will probably haunt me forever. I mean, those are things you don't forget. um, I didn't contact anybody else until I got into the ambulance, because my broken body, and they sent me an hour in an ambulance to the hospital as opposed to airlifting me with my daughter and husband. But it was in that I started to actually, you know what? I lied. I called home. I called your home, and your dad answered. And
Yeah, that's right. Because I remember
yep.
I missed a missed call from mom because I was out of the room.
hmm
And
And
then I
I
got your text.
I don't remember if I texted you. I think I called your dad, or called the
Farm.
farm first, and looking for their mom. And he said he'd get the message to her, and I think he called down to where she was working, and they had spoken. But just hearing all of that, I couldn't. I couldn't make any more phone calls. I just So yeah, it was. I texted Jess, and I mean, my heart broke to even send that text because I knew, of all people in this world, aside from Jordan and myself and Mallory, the one person who was going to, I mean, have the hardest time. And that's not to say that others didn't have a hard time. So I don't want to make it sound like that. But I probably didn't call Jess too because that's not something I could handle
Could have done. Yeah.
hearing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
because Jess and I have been, we're bonded and have been for a very long time, and she's probably my closest relationship. She is my closest
Mhm.
relationship. And um for me to actually say those words to her,
That's so
You
hard.
couldn't. You
no,
couldn't.
Oh,
no,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
that's so tough. When you get to the hospital and you're there and everything is becoming real for you, Jess, what was your go-to? Everybody reacts to this to trauma so much more differently. Sometimes there's that fight or flight stuff that people always talk about, but then there's also this other like bargaining of acceptance in that grief. Sometimes there's like, no way, it's not real. I'm gonna negotiate almost with yourself, like, it's not really happening. Did you experience anything like that, or what were you kind of thinking when as everything was
You
unfolding?
know, I was thinking about that actually, like, driving down here yesterday. But I don't ever remember going through that. I would just feel like once I got into that hospital, I was like, I'm not a mother, but any type, the mother, whatever female thing inside of me, I just was going to take care of Mallory. And at that point, she didn't know yet. And I was going back and forth from like the
Oh man.
children's side of the hospital to then check on Brooke and Jordan. And I was just I was at that point, I was doing whatever I needed to do for them. And I was taking care of Mallory. I mean, I was in the hospital room with her because her mother and father are in hospital beds, and I'm carrying her to the restroom. And then your brother got there. Like we slept. I I didn't sleep that next night. I sat in a chair in the bed next to Mallory so that she wasn't alone because she had a broken leg,
No, her femur.
her leg,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So she couldn't walk. And then I would wheelchair her over back and forth. I was just running back and forth through the hospital, honestly.
Wow.
And it
And
was in me. For me, all I wanted to do was protect Mallory
yeah, and that must
at
have been
that point.
helpful. I mean, it's just so impossible to say helpful almost in this
Right. No, but
situation,
it
but
was.
like
I mean, I remember I have pictures of me and Mallory making goofy faces in the hospital and dressing up and just trying to, because
survive.
again, she didn't know. She didn't know yet.
Yeah,
She
we
kept
didn't
asking me.
we
She
didn't
didn't know
tell
until like
the
the
next day, I
next
think.
day. And
Wow.
so she kept asking me, like, where's my Logie bear? And I had to lie to her,
That's
but it was the best thing for her at the moment.
yeah, because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
I remember, again, we talked about some of the more traumatic experiences that I've gone through too. If you don't, but I remember as a parent, the security of having someone like Jess, like my sister-in-law came to be with, and Jess, I don't know if you know, but my baby, or my only child so far, was born with a defect, and there was a NICU stay, and that was super super traumatic. Wasn't a loss, but just trying to seek out for Brooke here, or like from Brooke's perspective, there had to have been some sort of comfort to know, because I know for me there was, when it's like, oh, thank God at least someone's here to help with some of this, because my God, I mean, overwhelming is so understated. It
Yeah.
doesn't even begin to cover that. And so I think this is a good example of, like, if people listening, how can I support? Sometimes just being there is big, but then reading the room and realizing, oh, Brooke didn't have to tell you, hey, check on Mallory. Like, instinctively you went, oh, well, this is what needs to happen. And the fact that you were there was just so, I mean, already such a key moment. So that's a good takeaway from even just this part, is just, hey, someone's going through some shit,
Yeah.
put your boots on the ground, show up, and read the room.
Yeah.
The people need help. So
Yeah. I
well,
think that was a lot of the beginning of my whole like process for me was I was gonna do whatever you needed, or you and Jordan needed, and Mallory needed. That's all that mattered to me for a long time.
yeah. How long was that? Because you guys were in the hospital for days. So how did that kind of shape up over the course of the next few days or weeks?
You mean with her transitioning back?
Yeah, with like Jess being there, and because at some point you had to go back to like your
Yeah.
life,
Yeah, go
right?
back to Indy.
As
Yeah.
as we've
Or Chicago.
as we've established in previous episodes, the world doesn't give a shit that you're going through some stuff. Like,
Correct.
it keeps spinning, and so it's like, hey, you got to get
Yeah.
back to work. Like, how did how was that, managing this catastrophe, and then trying to be like, okay, back to life. And
Like that was that time of life was weird because I uh I was down there for a couple of days, right?
Mm-hmm.
A few days.
yeah.
And then I flew back to Indy because that's where I'm from originally. And I had moved to Chicago in 2015. So nobody in Chicago knew me and Logan's relationship. So I didn't really
Oh.
have people, to talk to. I didn't feel like I had people to talk to there about it. And like my close friends in Indy, they knew what he meant to me. So I went there for a few days too. But yeah, I bartended. Um, the only thing, honestly, that got me through the first few months was the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series.
Tell
Fair enough.
them tell them the story about when we
Logan.
were at the beach in June, that last trip we took
Oh,
to the beach
game?
with you guys watching the game
oh. Well,
on the TV.
yes, I am a diehard Cubs fan, and
Which, as a Padres fan, nobody's perfect. But go ahead.
Yeah, here we are. I have a Padres jersey, if that helps.
I
Let's be
does.
closer friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
Best
we're best
friends.
friends.
Okay.
Is it a Machado jersey or is it?
No. I am. No. No. No.
Greatest third baseman of all time. Anyway, moving on.
I take offense to that. Anyways, yes, the Chicago Cubs. 2016. Yeah, the last time I spent with Logan, the Cubs were actually playing down in Miami, and we were down in vacation just in
cool.
Indian Rocks. And I jokingly had said to Mallory and Logan that I was going to steal him and steal the car, and we were going to drive over to Miami and go to the game and then drive back. But we didn't do that. But
That didn't happen.
the two kids and I, they wanted to leave the beach so that they could come in because I wanted to go watch the day game. I had a sun allergy too, so I couldn't sit on a beach for all day long.
Fair enough.
But so we went in, and yeah, Logan watched the game with me, and then something fun happened, and now we have a fun saying I still say to this day. It's Willie with the wheels, baby.
That's
Because
it.
he almost ran out of his shoes to first base, and that's all Logan kept saying was Willie with the wheels.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's my. But yeah, the Cubs winning it all during that time for me. But
there's something to
kind
be
of
said
helped
about
me
that. Yeah, there's something to be
become-
said about that.
I
Yeah.
had a little experience at Wrigley Field too. Right after I went to, forgive me, I don't know what actual game it was, but it was the series against the Dodgers when Clayton Kershaw pitched, and I had never seen him pitch live, and so I
Boo.
bought myself a little. I know, but we lost that game.
And this is after the crash?
This is after, yeah. So this is playoff time. Just a month. It's October, so mid-October. It's a month later. But I got myself a little ticket in the bleachers, and I remember also like the summer that summer before he had passed. It was on his birthday actually. I was at Wrigley Field, and I had called him and wished him happy birthday and FaceTimed him, and he was like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at Wrigley." And I was like, "I want to fly you up here to get you at a game here," because we had been to a game in Tampa together. But but anyways, yeah, so I got a little seat in the bleachers with myself, and I just felt him there with me. And then I felt like I heard his voice at one point, and I turned right and looked, and then a little boy sat down right next to me at the game, and I was like, he's with me here. So, and then the
Yeah.
Cubs won it all.
That's
So
right.
I say that Logan brought the rainstorm in Game 7 so that the Chicago Cubs
So they could win.
make me feel joy at the hardest, most difficult part of my life.
That's got to be accurate. Also,
Yeah.
that was a game 2. Kershaw was
Okay,
pitching.
yeah.
He
I knew
also pitched in
Hendricks-
game 5, but they lost that game. So it was you watched game 2.
Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. Now, let me say something about that specifically, because people listening are like, how could you even think about baseball during a time like that? But to be honest with you, again, also against the Dodgers. So my daughter was born October 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And that weekend, we were like just sitting there while she's going through surgery and recovering from like major. So they had to like cut her open to fix her.
Yeah.
So you're just going through this, like, I don't even know, just this weird limbo of like, what is life right now? Right? The normalcy of life is just so thrown up in the fucking air that you don't know. But the Padres were playing the Dodgers in the division series, and I turned it on the TV, and at first there was this guilt that I'm like, why am I even enjoying baseball? And my daughter's like the floor over, just fighting for her life.
Yeah.
But then what I realized, and I want to make this point to what you're saying, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with sports, but when you're going through something so traumatic, any grasp of normalcy that you can have to just ground you from just being carried away in a hurricane is so important. And it's not to make light of what's happening. I mean, we even joked about the Padres and stuff during such a serious conversation, but really there's so much, it's like there's a tornado or a hurricane going on, and you're attached by a harness. And in this case, the harness was baseball to like a concrete slab that just won't, like it's the only thing holding you from going insane or something.
But and that's it. What's the alternative? I mean, do you get out and try to find something that can help fill some portion of your cup, or do you sit at home under the covers and wither away. And
Yeah.
I mean, it does. It's one of those things where you could feel guilty, but you shouldn't feel guilty ever,
No.
because you still have to move one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
and that's maybe lesson number 2 to take even already from this is one was how to be supportive. You showed up and you just read the room and understood. And 2 is, I mean, the sooner, and it's hard, but the sooner you can find at least one sliver of normalcy in what in a storm of complete abnormality, the better. And the more, because it felt, like I said, I felt guilty at first, but the second time I'm like, okay, I'm ready to deal with it. I'm ready to like face the music and take it on the chin with what's happening, because something was holding me, to the ground, anchoring me. So I'm glad that that's something that, you hold on to. And, the fact that you remember things like that and those memories, that it's not necessarily even a conversation about sports. It's just a conversation about there is life even in death. And then there's still some part of your life that can still be positive, even though the rest of it isn't. In fact, you need something positive, because the balance of scales is everything else is shit, but there's got to be a pony shitting all the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like there's got to be something positive in this.
I mean, we still have to find joy in our lives. We're still living. I mean, the people that are not with us anymore still want us to find joy.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't be completely covered by pain every single day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's no way.
I'm
finding
curious.
Joys is,
How long would
that's
you
how
say?
I remember him.
How long would you say it? When do you remember starting to find it easier along the path to integrate more of that joy? And do you remember, what you were doing, or?
That's a tough question.
It is a
No,
tough
I
question.
mean,
See,
No,
this
but
is
it's-
why
it's like-
No.
This is why
but-
I'm.
But it's a
not the
relevant
Mike B.
question. It's a relevant
I mean,
question, though. And I think it's important that you ask that.
time-wise, as we all know, since COVID, timeline has been weird. And then
Yeah,
you
that's
throw
true.
this thing in
Forget about COVID.
4 years before COVID,
Mhm.
and I'm like, a timeline? I'm not sure.
That's fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, I always ask,
remember-
like,
and I'm going to be honest, I drank a lot.
Yeah.
I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in over 4 years. I haven't had one drop of alcohol for 4 years.
And we are so
because
proud of her.
I, after
Congratulations.
this, was drinking for every feeling I was feeling.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and then I lost another friend to alcohol, and that changed me even more with that. So
yeah.
I don't know. I guess for me, I take away from, I'm just trying to find some joy,
Yeah.
to survive.
And people cope in all the different ways that, like, nobody would listen to this and go, "How dare you?" I mean,
Oh, I know.
Well, yeah.
Right?
because people cope in all sorts of different ways, and you were able to recognize, oh, that's what I was doing, which is honestly the biggest thing. But I think a good way to think about it, and this is going to sound, so I do stand-up comedy, Jess. I don't know if Brooke told you, but for me, my sign of like when I'm able, my timeline, if you will, to Brooke's question is, how can I make this funny? And right now I don't feel like making it funny for me yet. Like my trauma, it's not, I make fun of my other trauma of moving here and moving to the United States and almost being murdered and all that stuff. I make jokes about that all the time. Yeah. Cause some time has to pass, right? Tragedy plus time equals comedy. But I know I'll remember, and I'll know that I'm somewhat healing or moving in the right direction when I'm able to make a joke about it, or when I'm able to take some brevity of the situation. And I think the first time that something like that happened was my daughter had a G tube attached to her that we had to feed her through. And when we were able to, they had us take that out. I took it out. It was like minor surgery in our house. It was crazy. But that night we threw a party, and all of the equipment that was unused and sanitized, like came in like in a sanitized plastic bags. There was like these gravity tubes that you're supposed to plug into her, and she would feed through it. We took all these tubes and we threw a party, and we invited a bunch of people and drank tequila and margaritas through those tubes. And in my head, and the nurse or NICU nurse was there, and she goes, "This is the funniest thing like that you could think of." And in my head, I'm like, this is a sign for me for my own mental health that I'm moving in the right direction about carrying this trauma with me, and it gets a little lighter when you can add some brevity to it. Do you remember a time like that when you, I mean, obviously not laugh about the crash, but do you remember a time where you could think of Logan and laugh instead of be in pain, or that you could think of the jokes he would say or things he would do?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I always just kept trying to think of him in that way and never, I guess I established the accident with the pain, but not Logan. If that makes any sense. But
Yeah.
well, I mean, all our brains are different, right? But I don't know. I don't remember ever. I don't know. It's it's weird to try to remember all your feelings like that, especially so long ago.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But that's what we
I don't
talk
know.
about.
I just
That's what
know,
we're here,
like,
you know?
right. And I know, I just know over the past years, it's like his birthday and things like that. Like I do
Yes.
something every year. I don't get or the date, that we lost him. Like a couple years ago, I went to a Foo Fighters show because I'm like, I'm not going to go be sad. One year I went to a Cubs game and wished him happy birthday on the big screen in front of everybody.
I was
and some of my
I
friends
was gonna
went,
mention that.
and
It was
it was
great.
that was
That's
something.
cool.
That's what made me joy. Another year I flew down to Tampa Bay to go to a playoffs game because, I'm a big sports girl, obviously.
Yeah.
But in 2015, the Blackhawks beat Tampa Bay in the Stanley Cup Finals.
That's right.
And at that time, I wanted to fly down and take Logan to a game because it would have been cheaper to buy a flight and buy 2 tickets in Tampa than 1 ticket in Chicago.
Oh,
But I never did it. And then, so in 2021, I actually bought myself a ticket and flew down and went to a playoff game by myself and got a jersey. And I went and I cheered for him and they won and had a great time.
that I
So
was
those are
actually
the things that I try to do and have tried to do for a long time for myself. Because then I get to go feel the joy. And I only feel him in the love that he always made me feel. I don't ever feel the sadness anymore. I notice sometimes I'll think of it, and then I'll just cry for a second and then I go on.
Yeah.
But I never think of him and feel pain. I just think of the accident and feel the pain anymore.
Yeah. We were talking about this before we started recording, but there's not really really groups. There's support groups for people who've gone through loss or, who have different kind of trauma, but there's not really anything for the aunts and uncles, if you will, or the adjacent grievers to
The rest of the people.
who are kind of like in your situation where it's like, it wasn't your son, but that doesn't mean you didn't just get derailed entirely by by life and by someone's stupid choices. So is there a way, or have you tried to look into doing something like that or creating something like that? Is that something that would be that we could help do with the podcast even?
I mean, yeah, I have in Indianapolis. I thought about that for a long time because ever since this has happened, like we talked about earlier, when I immediately was like, I'm going to do whatever you need, from day one. And then we were talking earlier and you're like, who's that person that's supporting you? And I'm over here like, nobody.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing there.
I mean, and all my friends didn't know what to say. I kind of just got through it. And I don't know. I just did. And then eventually years later down the road, I did get some grief therapy, but it still wasn't the same. I think for me personally, I have always wanted to talk to other aunts and uncles because I think it would be, especially to talk about the way how it's like, I loved Logan like he was my own son.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done anything in the world to protect him and anything for him, but I didn't have him. I don't know. It's just, so I think it would be great. I'm sure I'm not the only aunt or uncle that has lost a niece or nephew. And I think it would be a great idea to have a support group for just those people because it's a different kind of loss.
Yeah. Yeah. And the burden is different in the way
And
that
I don't even have my own children, like I said earlier. But so for me, this was like, I mean, this was the biggest loss in my life.
yeah. Yeah. And the burden of, I got to be there for my brother and my sister.
Yeah.
I lost the equivalent of a son. Who the hell is teaching you how to balance that? Who the hell is walking you through how to handle all of those emotions at the same time and still go, oh, and I got to go back to work now. Like, what the hell? Like, that flight home must have been just so strange, more like in a whole different way, right? And
Yeah,
than
it
that.
was. I remember at least for like a week at work, well, because I also at the time was bartending. So, I have to go be the happiest girl in the world
Yeah, yeah. Your
and
charisma is
pretend
half of
like
your
I'm
income.
okay.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, I'm dying inside
yeah,
and I hate everything right now.
yeah, yeah. How did you do that? I mean, where did you pull from to have the strength for that?
At I don't know. I guess there's just whatever is in me that just gets me up and goes and does it. And
Wow, impressive.
you gotta, I don't know, you gotta do it. I don't know. I guess that's just how I felt. Or at the time, also, Logan would want me to keep living my life the way I was, you know?
Mm. Gosh, I'm first of all, I'm honored that you're sharing this with me and on this, and thank you for the bravery of coming to talk about it, because I think these are the voices that also go unheard a lot in situations of loss, and I commend you for the way that you have navigated this and that you're willing to talk about it. Brooke, did you have a question? Otherwise, I wanted to ask.
No, I was actually just going to say, to kind of follow all of the, who was there for her. In full transparency, it's been something that I've reflected on, but we've always been there for each other. I mean, the things that we've talked about and we've shared, that
Right.
we
And I
don't.
don't mean that you weren't there for
No, no,
me.
no. Well, no, but see, but
We
that,
were there for each other.
but see, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I actually carry with me, I wouldn't say it's guilt, because I
Please
tried
don't.
to remove any sort of, I think guilt is a poison.
Mhm.
I think guilt
Say
can
that
be,
again.
yeah, complete poison. So I'm not going to use the word guilt. And I hope that others hear me when I say guilt is never going to lead to healing. Because trust me, if anybody knows guilt and knows what it's like to carry it, it's the person who knows that we were all in the car that day because of her. And so it's taken me a long time to think that it wasn't me. I wasn't the reason that Logan died. But there is, I've done a tremendous amount of work and reflection, and it's hard for me to look back and know that she's walking forward, and I know that I could only be the best that I was, but for her to be the foundation in which I can't speak for everyone, but I could still move, because I know that if I needed to talk to anybody, I could just pick up my phone, right? And Jess is there. But it wasn't until later that I realized, well, who the hell, I wasn't there like I wish I could have been for her. And it kills me to know that people are being that support system. People like Jess become that support system for others, but then don't have the same in return. Because, like she said, it's just like the grieving person. People don't know what to say to you. Well, she may not have lost her son, but she might as well have. I mean, they were that close, and her friends didn't know what to say, and I'm just too, incapacitated in my
Yeah,
head, not
numb.
knowing what the
Yeah.
fuck just happened to my life, that I can't be there for her. And I don't know, it always brings the question up of why why aren't we talking about it? Why isn't society
Yeah.
honoring these, because it happens every day. You're not the only aunt that's
I know.
lost,
All
and
the
we
time.
know
Mhm.
another person who, she's lost her nephew and they connected for a long time. And, it's just,
Yeah.
but who's
Uh,
there for them?
I mean, it happens every day, every hour almost. I mean, and there's people who are, I mean, didn't we do the math? It was like
Yeah,
every
we did
42 minutes.
every
We're
50 minutes.
something like that. So almost in the time of, since we've been recording, certainly since the time that we got on this call, before we started recording, someone's lost somebody because of a
Mhm.
distracted driver.
Mhm.
Just full stop. What the hell? And it's hard to, one of the things that the human experience can bring as in a form of beauty is to share trauma, shared experiences like that. That's why there's support groups and all that, but there's nothing really out there that says, hey, you are in a very specific situation. Your trauma was loss plus support, and it's, which is different than I lost a son. It's you have to be there for your family, but also wipe your tears away. It's time to get to work to help somebody, but also try not to feel guilt. But then also, it's just so, it's a different set of complicated emotions to deal with. Did you, to shift a little bit of into some of the rest of this and I wanted to ask about, Jess, is as the trial's happening, that's right. So we move into this whole different aspect of this entire situation, which is a person's being tried for vehicular homicide because of distracted driving, and there's all over the news, in Florida specifically, but really anywhere, this is something that's being made public, and you are directly related to the whole show that the media is making out of it and the whole situation that's being. What was that like to navigate? I mean, you're seeing Brooke and Jordan on the news talking about something that is still, biting at you and eating at you inside. How did you experience the trial and on all of that fallout after?
Well, I guess more, I was very proud of how brave that this one over here was.
I love you.
I love you too. But for me, I don't know. The trial made me angry. So
Ah,
It's okay.
that's when my anger
yeah,
came
that's
up.
okay.
It
Yeah,
made me angry.
It should.
So
It's okay.
that's, I think, the anger part of our grieving process. I think that's when it all happened for me. My anger came out when that happened. But I don't know. That's a weird one. The trial.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
wasn't even there, but it I had to get, I remember upping my anxiety meds.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
then-
and to be fair,
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't have to sit through
Yeah.
any of that.
Even though I wanted
because-
to, because I wanted to be there for you, but
Yeah.
I also don't know that I could have. I remember just reading some things and it was too much about the accident. Even just the last time, the last things you sent me reading about it
I know.
just
For
broke
the-
my heart.
The appellate
So,
hearing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And when he's convicted, and there's like this release almost from all this stress. I mean, I've talked to Brooke about it on and off the air a little bit, but when it all came out that he was going to pay for the entirety of his choices, did you feel relief? Did that anger release, or was it just still kind of hanging in there? Did it feel justified, or did you feel justice, and did you experience anything like that?
Honestly, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remember everybody was like, "Yay!" and I go, "I don't feel any better."
Do you know I didn't either?
I know. I just
Yeah.
I didn't feel any better. I mean, I can imagine I only would have felt worse if it didn't have the outcome that it did, but I didn't feel any better when I found out, honestly. And everybody around me was trying to be supportive and like, "Yay!" and I'm like, "No, I'm I'm not happy. This doesn't make me happy right now." I don't know. That's how I honestly felt about it.
No,
I
that
think
makes
that's
sense.
why that whole part of it was so hard. The trial part was
Yeah, that makes
hard.
sense.
Yeah.
When you found out that Brooke was going to do this podcast and start speaking up about what she's experienced and how other people can, listen in and be a part of this and kind of build this community of people who have experienced trauma, what were your initial thoughts when you first, or I mean, Brooke told me that she, a lot of people had told her, you need to talk about this. You need to do this. Was there any, when you found out that this was going to start happening, how did you, how did it feel to know that this was happening?
Well, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's very brave.
Yeah.
I feel very brave right now.
You are.
But
yeah, you're doing amazing.
She's a rock star.
I honestly am thinking, wow, this takes some serious ovaries to do what you're doing. Because
well, they're screaming right now. Listen,
we're doing okay. We're doing okay. This is why I'm crying, and that's okay.
You're feeling your feelings.
Well, you're crying. You're crying because it hurts, and you're crying because pain is real and pain is difficult to deal with, and it's a very natural and very normal way of taking pain. It's crying. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think with it all, other than I think it's a very beautiful thing because again, we don't talk about our fucking shit at all. I come from a father who we don't talk about things. Stay tuned for Jordan to be a guest.
I'm excited for that.
Okay. Well, maybe I should join too. Anyways,
yeah. Hey. Oh, that's an
hell
idea.
yeah. Hell
Hey,
yeah.
listen. Stay an extra day. We'll do it.
Anyway.
Never mind what I was about to say. Did you see where I was going with that?
Yeah.
Please, can we cut that out?
But no, the thing with, yes, it's a funny little thing. I have taken away from my little experience of talking about Logan when I talk about him randomly, and it doesn't do anything but make me smile. But I also have his name and his handwriting tattooed on my wrist.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So when people sometimes ask me like, oh, who's Logan? Or if I meet someone named Logan, it's rare. I show them it, and it's just a moment, and it's just funny because immediately those people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, it makes me smile because it's giving me a chance to think of him and smile and not, feel the pain and feel the sadness of it. It's like, look, today in this very moment, you got to make me think of him.
Yeah.
And
it's
I
honoring. It's honoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about him. My friends let me talk about him. And share stories, and that's feeling our feelings and all of that crap. Going back to, I used to drink a good amount after this all happened, so I didn't feel my feelings, and that's why I felt very numb for a long time. Like after the Cubs won, and in that December, I didn't drink for a month because I was like, "You need to pull your shit together, Jesse. You got to get through this." Because I'm, drinking is a depressant. So I think more though, since I have stopped drinking, and that's been the hardest part for me, is to feel all my feelings and process them. So then that also then brought up some of my trauma and grief with this, and so it's almost like I was reprocessing it again, but in a better way, and letting it go and healing. Not letting it go, but letting go some of the pain, trying to just be like, okay, this is your brain. This is you really in your heart, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you lost a very important person in your life in a very horrific way, not by being unlucky. Somebody killed Logan. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, he was outside and he got struck by lightning or something, which is just a freak act of God. This is a person who was making choices selfishly, who devastated. I mean, there's so many layers to your pain, which is I lost somebody important, somebody hurt my sister and my brother, which already is. I mean, if somebody just hurts your family, it's already tough.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, I have to deal with both of those things while just trying to be as supportive as I can be. I mean, we've mentioned it 3 or 4 times, but that's so hard to do. And so it makes sense that at first there was this run away from it and hide from it through alcohol. And then there was this realization, oh, I'm not helping me. I'm not honoring Logan, and I'm not helping my family, you know, with this. And the people who maybe are going through something like this, from your perspective and in your shoes, might be, hopefully this helps them understand, like, hey, you know, the not dealing and not facing these scary emotions is the easy route. You have to have the bravery to do so.
Everything.
Yeah.
Even everything.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So many.
And
so
I
many
do,
people that...
I do want to say how proud of her I am, because, I mean, Jess has always remembered, and we talked about this, I think, in one of the earlier episodes, where Jess doesn't need to write a book. All she does is she'll text me and just say, I love you.
Huge.
And
I mean,
and that's all it, it's all it really needs. And, to have someone who is in that much pain, but is also standing by you in the way that she has, I mean, that you can't quantify. You just can't quantify that. And, for her to, it's been really great to watch her, because a lot of people would stay in those shoes, right? It's so much easier to numb the pain than it is to face it. It's so much easier not to go to EMDR like I do, or to go to trauma camp like we did, residential trauma, or to not even go to therapy, right? It's just easier to numb it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when you start to find your true self by letting go of all of those numbing agents, that's where the healing begins.
Yeah.
And, just to see how much she's grown and through all of this has been phenomenal. And it's something that, I wish for other people in our lives as well. But, it's to each their own. But I also too wanted to mention, she talked about how it brings her joy to be able to talk about Logan when people bring that up. That refers back to something we had said before, where people are scared. I mean, especially the people that know you are scared to ever say anything. On Logan's birthday on September 15th, this one always. I mean, there are a few people who just religiously, say, I love you, or I'm thinking of you, or like the day at the Cubs game where you put his birthday up on the monitor. She's like, look what I did. I mean, and
awesome.
she's not afraid. She's not afraid of upsetting me. She's not, because for people who are listening, that shows more love and support than sidestepping, thinking that you're gonna upset the person. And I mean, I don't know how much that affected your life with, friends and even family, with kind of, having the people in the initial, like we call them sprinters and marathoners. So the people who are there in the initial, but drop off because they become afraid. We had that, I mean, almost completely.
Yeah.
I don't know how that was necessarily for you.
It wasn't like I kind of still have the same people in my life that I did, that I was close with then. So,
and they're okay too. I mean,
yeah, I mean, most of the people are always, a lot of them will go. Yeah, I have my good friend Shelly. We always talk about, my work. If I worked on his birthday, I would take Cheetos and donuts, and we would all celebrate Logan's birthday one
That's
year.
Awesome.
Like the first birthday after his, the next year, his first birthday after 2016, I bought all my friends at work who had children. I bought all of their children a bag of Cheetos and a gift, and that was my from Logan birthday gift to
that's awesome.
these kids, because it
That's
just
so
made
healthy.
me like, I couldn't give him a birthday gift, but I was able to gift all these children a little something, it just made me feel good.
I remember those photos.
Now-
she
Yeah,
sent
I
me.
wanted to give
We're
him
not
something,
sponsored by
but,
Cheetos.
sorry, Cheetos.
But
we
we
could
could be Cheetos.
When Aunt Jessie comes to town, we
Yep.
get Cheetos.
I mean, Cheetos is a big. In fact, last night Mallory had her choir concert, and Jesse and Cheetos are just a thing with my kids. I mean, we don't buy
That's
them
hot.
Cheetos, so when Jesse comes to town, they know they're going to get
Flamin'
Cheetos,
hot, right?
and they got peanut M&Ms.
Just a
Mila
regular
did. They
crunchy.
Mila, she bought. I mean, Jess buys them for herself, but Mila's sitting there next to her, holding the bags, and is like, "Would you like one?"
Yeah,
Just-
she just stole half my bag of peanut M&Ms.
She did,
As she
but-
should. You're the aunt.
But
Ugh.
yeah, Cheetos is a way we honor him. and
I don't eat
definitely
them
the
any other day than on his
donuts and-
birthday.
Mhm.
That's I mean, that's understandable. One last question before we wrap up, as we're getting close to here. But what have you, or how do you advocate as far as with distracted driving for yourself and those around you? Have you found any like, for example, for me, just meeting Brooke, I don't. If I'm in the car, my phone is put away. If I need to text somebody importantly, I pull over. Like, it's changed me
Yeah.
in the last few months since I've known her. How
I
has
know a lot of-
your how's that gone for you?
I mean, for me, I just kind of, most of the people I have in my life after this happened, that's all they said. They are like, I do not have my phone in my hands anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I walk my dog a lot and have in Indianapolis, and have almost been hit by numerous people on their cellular contraptions and not paying attention as they roll
Infuriating.
up to the stop sign going 20 miles an hour while they're on their cell phones or
Infuriating.
turning. Yeah, so one time I punched a hood of the car because I yelled at the guy.
Fair enough.
He almost hit me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I mean, other than supporting, all the things that they did and everything, but I mean, I try to be a good Samaritan myself, and just try to. That's kind of what I say it every day. Usually, I work in a restaurant still, so I just tell everybody to stay off their phones while they're driving.
Hey, and
Huge.
coming soon, you'll be able to take a bunch of stickers and
Yeah.
pass them
Yeah.
out.
So
I
people
can.
can listen.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey-o.
I can.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If there's anything that we can do tangibly, or if we could, it's just, it would be awesome if we could somehow get a counter of the number of people who have committed to not be distracted while
Oh.
driving.
That would be awesome, but I think the
I don't-
reach is.
I don't know how
a lot
tangibly we could
farther,
do that,
actually.
but it'd be amazing to be able to say, hey,
Mm.
if we could have like a little contract to yourself to say, hey, I will not. And again, notice we're not saying texting and driving. If this is your first episode, this is a theme that's going to continue to come up. We're talking about distracted driving in general. This is like doing your makeup and driving. This is eating and driving. This is
Turning
looking
around
to your
and petting
spot.
dog.
Yeah. I mean, it is anything that makes you not pay attention to the weapon that you are driving, in amongst other weapons that other people are also driving. Without saying, I mean, also goes without saying, drinking and driving and anything that keeps you not driving well. So we should talk about that later, as far as like how we can create a whole, like, just magnify the movement that's already been made, and really give it some juice using this medium. So I just wanted to get your take on that, Jess, because I'm sure, I mean, I started advocating for it. I've started telling people that I know, my friends, hey, listen, this is important to me now. I thought it was important in general before, but now after having met Brooke, I think this is something that if everybody just advocates for it to 5 of their friends, it's like a little don't be distracted
Tree.
driving pyramid scheme,
Okay.
but for a good
let's
cause.
Right.
The
how
one-
about we call
the
it a
one-
tree?
There we
Let's
go.
call it a tree and not a pyramid
Yeah.
scheme.
If there was ever a good pyramid scheme, it'd be the one that's encouraging people to not distract and be distracted while driving. So
I
yeah,
like to remind people that they are not invincible, even though that they do feel like they are, until something happens.
I think we've talked about that too, haven't we?
Well, yeah. And again, some of these topics will go into more detail about like that, even that feeling of invincibility. But I couldn't underline that and put an exclamation point to it, Jess, because you're right. Skin is pretty weak, and we are made of mostly water, so it's like a water balloon that we are. So doesn't take much to to be seriously take some damage. Amen to that. Oh man, Jess, I'm honored. Thank you for sharing this
Thank
hour.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this
We're gonna
I
take
feel better
her
now
for
than I did
some.
right before it started.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna make her feel better with some ice cream and some
Yay, I get
Mexican
a
food
treat.
later.
Hell yeah.
Woo!
Excited.
Yeah. Oh, love that.
I
Speaking
see
of
when
good,
Jesse comes
speaking
to
of good
town.
coping mechanisms, Mexican food and ice cream. Let's
I know.
fucking
Yes.
go.
Listen,
We could have
went-
named
we
this
went
podcast
to-
Mexican food and ice cream, and it
Look,
would have also hit.
See,
We, could
we
have
also
a turn
went
off
to
one, another.
Puckett's for breakfast
There
this
you
morning.
go,
So
biscuits.
Puckett's is not a sponsor of the show,
But they could
but
be.
they could be.
Talk to their
But
owner,
we
Brooke.
got
See if
Best
they could.
biscuits in Franklin,
biscuits
y'all.
and the skillet cinnamon
Skillet
rolls.
rolls.
Oh, so see,
I'm in bed with myself.
now Danielle. Now I spoke with, or I had Danielle, or I was with Danielle, my trainer this morning, and I told her this is what was going to happen. But I also said this is what happens when Jess comes to town.
Yes, I ruin everybody's diet.
I'm sure Danielle can forgive and forget.
She will. She already has.
I'm meeting with her next week, so looking forward to it, Danielle. I think we should
Danielle.
I think we say hi to Danielle every episode. So hi, Danielle.
I do. I told her that.
Hi, Danielle.
I told her that. I was like, I think you've made an appearance on every single show
I'm the
so far.
life ruining Aunt Jessie.
Beautiful. We all, everybody,
life-ruining.
everybody needs one.
That's right.
It's a fun aunt, right?
Well, thank you so much again, Jess. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you hit follow. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, again, this is just going to let you know when new episodes drop, unless you opt in for something else. But if you want to keep listening to these and keep tabs on this, make sure you hit that subscribe. There's going to be a link on the show notes below. My name's Andres Gamboa. This has been the Trauma Uncensored podcast, where we heal out loud. And Brooke Scherer is the absolute GOAT. Thanks, Jess, for being here.
Thanks. Thank you for your resilience. I love you.
I love you.
Bye, everybody.